Today, we're talking about something a lot of people are chasing: calm, but not actually finding calm. Many people feel tense, anxious, or exhausted all the time. They try meditation, breath work, and relaxation techniques, and maybe nothing really sticks, nothing really works. Then they assume maybe something's wrong with them. In this episode, we're going to explore a different idea: that the nervous system doesn't calm down when you force relaxation. It calms down when it feels safe. Joining us today are Jeannie Mills and Allan Mills. Jeannie is a registered nurse with a deep understanding of psychology and the nervous system. And together, Jeannie and Allan are co-owners of a float center where they work with people who are overwhelmed, dysregulated, or worn down by constant stress. Allan also brings a perspective grounded in emotional mastery and lived experience, not theory, which makes this conversation today especially relevant for people who feel like their body never really shuts down or shuts off. Today's conversation isn't about cures or quick fixes. It's about understanding how safety, stillness, and reduced stimulation change the conditions for regulation, and why deep calm can sometimes feel emotional or intense before it feels peaceful. This is an educational conversation focused on awareness and patterns, not diagnosis or treatment. Without further ado, Jeannie, Allan, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks, Ed.
I'm really excited because, Jeannie, you and I, we met each other several months ago when I was at your float center, and I floated myself. So I'm excited for everyone to hear this, to hear what it's all about. When people come to you, how do they usually describe what they're feeling day to day?
Typically, the most common response is, I'm tired, I'm stressed, I'm overstimulated, I don't know how to shut my brain off.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah. I mean, that's could probably be almost everybody. Like I need to come back yesterday. So,
Yeah.
So when they say that they're feeling that way, what do you feel like gets them sort of stuck in that stress mode? What does it look like in their body, and how can they tell that that's something that they need to fix?
Yeah. So being in those emotional states have a physical toll as well on your body, and it might result in not sleeping well at night. It might result in high blood pressure or just feeling just really wired up, and they can't settle down. They just can't figure out a way to calm themselves down.
Okay. So I feel like this. I come to your center. What am I about to experience? To walk us through that.
A wonderful experience.
I
um,
agree.
our our float tanks, or a float tank, is intended and designed to kind of remove all that noise. All of our senses are always feeling something. We're always looking at something. We're always hearing something. We're typically often talking to many people, whether it's on a device or face to face. And all of our senses are always in high gear. And the float tank gives you an opportunity to just shut it all off, just go away and be in a warm, calming, soothing environment where nobody's talking to you and you don't have to think about anything. And that gives your brain a chance to really relax and help out those anxiety feelings and those stressful feelings.
Great. So they come to you. They are about to go and float in water, maybe for the first time. Maybe they've never really floated before. They've been in the water their whole lives, maybe, but they've never actually just floated. How does this work compared to them being in a pool, being in a bathtub? And what is the sensory science behind that?
Right. Well, you have to believe that there's a lot of trust involved in this whole experience, in the sense that they're in an environment that they've never been in. We're asking them to get naked in the tank because you don't want any clothing to interfere with the sensory experience. But most rooms at float centers are private. Our rooms are certainly private. They have a lock on the door, private shower. So it does take a lot of trust from the client and trust in us to get into this experience in order for them to feel better, in order for us to help them. So you're laying in 200 gallons of 94-degree water, which is very warm. It's skin temperature. So you get the experience where you just don't know where your skin ends and where the water begins. And that's the whole point of it. It's that disassociation, that mind body disassociation that is ideal for helping your mind relax and just helping your nervous system deregulate, really.
So, talk to us about that nervous system. Why do most people get misunderstood, or what do most people misunderstand about relaxation or calming when it comes to the nervous system?
I think that they don't know how to turn off. And I hear that a lot from people who say, I just don't know how to relax. They've never really experienced that full feeling of relaxation and feeling safe. I mean, your nervous system really has to feel safe in order for it to be relaxed and to help trigger that cascade of relaxation to reduce anxiety, to help sleep patterns, and things of that nature.
It's not talked about enough. Like, we don't really understand the nervous system. We just had a chiropractor, Dr. Matt, this morning. We had him on as a guest. And I know as a chiropractor, and they're doing adjustments that they can realign the nervous system as well. So it's just talk to us a little bit more about, and maybe Alan, this might be a question for you. Educate us a little bit more as a population about how our nervous system works, how important it is, why is it an integral component, and why we should stop ignoring it.
Exactly. Yeah. So our nervous system has been developed for entire life since we were born, and we take on the emotions that were from our childhood and every experience we've had. And so our mind then takes those emotions and kind of drives them into the nervous system. So they live in our body. The body doesn't lie. Takes all these emotions on. So that we're always now in this time frame as we're living in this state of fight or flight. We've got phones, we've got screens, we've got constant bombardment with information, and it's keeping everybody in this fight or flight. And so, with all those emotions we develop when they're younger, and all the emotions and everything going on with the fight or flight, it stops everybody from really relaxing. And so, with the nervous system, you're either in sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system. And most of the time, people live in that sympathetic fight or flight place because they're so stimulated and don't realize it. And they're comfortable with that. And so when they get into this parasympathetic place, it's almost like this is not normal. It's not safe. So our nervous system is designed to be safe. It wants to be safe all the time. It wants it to be in a place where it recognizes that whatever we're used to is safe. So it gets comfortable with the norm. So now it's comfortable with that fight and flight. So it's like, what do I do now? How do I, if I get into a calm place, it seems very unusual.
What's the difference between calming the mind and calming the nervous system?
I think they're kind of one and the same.
I think there's a combination between the emotions, the mind, and the nervous system, and they kind of relate to each other. The emotions kind of come first, and they drive the mind because the emotions are the place where we were emotional beings before we were thinking. So whatever emotion we're in drives what we're thinking, and then all that is just all inside the nervous system, and it's all in there, and it's basically driving us to one place or another, wherever state we're in, whatever emotional state we're in, drives the chemicals in the nervous system, which drives us to think in a certain way, and so they kind of interrelate with each other, and they kind of compound each other because if you're in a certain emotional state, like you're in a sad place, then you're like feeling a loss of something. And then your mind gets to rationalize and justify why you're in that emotion, which then causes your nervous system to get tense and then that reinforces the pattern and it just becomes a complete pattern that keeps staying in the nervous system. And so then you're actually start identifying as a sad person. Whereas if you identify as a joyful person, I'm joyful. I have joyful thoughts, and then start thinking about more joyful things, and that you're more likely to be having those more joyful thoughts, and that kind of is a different place in the nervous system.
Very well put. That makes a lot of sense. So you said that the deep calm can feel overwhelming or emotional at first when you're floating. Why does that surprise people?
I think I can say it first, and then Jeannie can jump in as well because she sees this a lot. Is I think because people are so used to being in that fight or flight place and so stimulated all the time, that their nervous system has got very comfortable with that. And so when you're calm, and I remember my very first float, I really calmed down so much that I did get a little, just for a second, I was like, what is happening? I've never felt this calm before. It was just a great, I loved the experience. But it's like, okay, this is quite interesting. And because it basically at some point in the float, your body feels so light and it feels so relaxed that it almost feels like you don't even have a body anymore. It's like this where's my body? It doesn't gone. It's like it doesn't even really exist anymore. It feels this light, fluffy kind of thing underneath my brain. And it's like just the most amazing thing that I've ever experienced. But the first time you do it, it can be a little bit of a surprise because you're not used to being that calm.
So you had mentioned earlier, or given us notes at least, that the first time someone comes in there, the deep calm can be a little overwhelming and maybe emotional at first. Why do you think that is?
Because I think people are just so used to just living the status quo, like always doing something, always having to be busy to either think or to do or to communicate. And the nervous system regulates and activates the muscular system. So when your nervous system is in high intensity, then your muscles get tight, you start to feel pain, you have neck pain, whatever, you feel pain, whether it's an emotional pain or physical pain. And when you get into the float tank and your nervous system relaxes, your muscles start to relax. You're like, oh, okay, my shoulders don't hurt anymore, or that headache is gone. So I think the physical change that happens in the float tank is a little alarming to people because they don't realize that, okay, there is something that can help me not feel stressed all the time.
If you're running across them, maybe the best question actually is, do you run across people who come to you and say, I'm thinking about trying this, but I've tried to do mindful practices and meditation and it doesn't work. What do you say to them that would maybe help them realize that they just need a little bit more help in a sensory deprivation type flotation like yours, or like
Yeah, I
yours
often
that's out there?
like yours. It's in the
Yeah.
I often tell people that floating is just like one tool in your toolbox. Whether it's paired with other modalities, whether it's not a fix all. It really isn't, but it's a really good option. So I always tell people they can get out whenever they want. If they get into the tank and give it a good honest effort and it's just not for them, then they can just get out. But I encourage them to breathe and to try and just work it through and just listen to the music if they want to, or just let their mind go wherever it is. But it takes a few times. It honestly takes, up to maybe 3 times for somebody to really figure out, like, okay, I'm safe. This is healing for me, or this is helpful for me. And I like it or I don't like it.
Yeah. Speaking from experience, I did it twice, and both times I found it extremely relaxing. I am a certified, self-proposed, not so good at meditation. I blatantly will tell people I don't feel like I'm that great at it. I don't feel like I can go for very long. And it was a lot easier to get into a meditative state. And I would say a state that I haven't felt outside of that. And so much to the point where, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, I fell asleep in water floating. And it was awesome. But it almost feels like, just to be frank, I know, when you're meditating, I feel like, at least I've heard, when you're meditating, you don't really want to be in sleep state because the meditative work is not really being done, I guess. Is that true? Like, if you fall asleep, is that not as helpful because you're not really being present?
I've found people come out and say, "Oh, I didn't fall asleep," but it's okay. It's not a requirement to fall asleep. Not everybody does. I don't fall asleep. Alan does sometimes, but I'm not sure if it negates anything necessarily. If your purpose is to meditate, then certainly falling asleep wouldn't be beneficial to you. But in a float tank, you're just even that much more relaxed. It's really a sign that your body and your mind are relaxed enough to put you into that sleepy state.
Great
Yeah,
point.
I think with meditation, it's about really getting into that parasympathetic place, and your body and your mind and your whole, once you're in that parasympathetic place, your body knows what to do. And if it needs sleep, it says, okay, I'm going to get sleep right now. I literally do a 90-minute float most of the time, because the first time I did a 90-minute float, we literally normally do not 60 minutes, but 90 minutes gave me the chance to have a little sleep and then wake up. On the other side of that sleep is the best meditation I've ever had, because now I'm in a whole different place. When you wake up and you're just kind of like halfway awake, you stay in that spot for the entire rest of the float. And because you have no sense of how much time is left, you can just get in such a deep place of meditation after you've taken that rest. And so the body gets, every time I float, I usually sleep for a little time. I don't know how long, because I have no clock to see how long it's been I've slept. But I do have that time afterwards where I get so much deeper into a meditation. So it's almost like a cycle. You get that rest, your body says, okay, it's time to sleep. Especially in it, I find it's really helpful if I've been really going hard, working hard, or traveling, and I get in a float tank. It's like I'm 10 minutes later. Sometimes I come back home to see Jeannie, and I've had a float, and I said, I don't remember a thing about that float. I slept for 90 minutes.
You could tell with your personality, your demeanor, your temper, how much that sleep helped, would you say?
Yes. Yeah, it really does, because so I go through a cycle in a float tank where I kind of take on whatever's going on in my nervous system, and I let it just flow. I let that first bit flow, and I said, whatever's going on, I'm just going to let it be. And just it all comes through the crazy mind, the jumping thoughts, the pains in the body. I'll just let it go for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then there's a moment in that float tank where I just sink into that. I can literally feel it, where it just takes, I call it sinking into the float tank, because I let go of all those things. And I could have been worrying about all these things 10 minutes ago. And suddenly I'm like, what was I worried about? And then I literally usually fall asleep. And then I wake up and I'm like, oh, good. I've got some time left now to just enjoy this moment, no matter what happens.
I don't know if the listeners are feeling the same way I am, but I think we all want that, right? We all,
But a point of clarification, he doesn't really sink, because the Epsom salt won't allow you to sink. It is so highly concentrated that you feel like you're sinking, but you're not. You don't. You stay on top of the water.
Yeah.
since we're doing point of clarifications, personally, I highly suggest the bigger neck pad so that your ears don't get in the water. You just float on top. Because the first time I did it, I was like, oh, I'm a boss, man. I don't need the big one, right? I'll just do the small one. And getting the water in my ears just was a huge distraction. So to each his own, but that would be my recommendation. So
Yeah.
why
I don't
is it?
use a head float at all.
What?
I'm like you first time, just I let my spine and the curvature of my spine go naturally where the water is going to put it. And that's the most comforting feeling for me. That's just me.
Yeah, I do the same. I find that because I'm on a computer a lot, my neck is really tight. And that's my best feeling when I can get in the water, and it takes a little minute to get that tension out. But I have a few positions I get into. I get in, we have a cabin, which is really wide, and I put my arms out wide, and I put them above my head, and I can literally feel the notches between all the pieces of my spine just kind of unwinding, and just like, oh, that's so nice. And my neck, I can literally feel it, and the tension just releasing. It's like, oh, that's so nice.
Interesting. Then the water in your ears doesn't bug you.
I put the earplugs in really tight.
Good quality earplugs.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So why is the aspect of removing stimulation sometimes more powerful than if someone were to try to add another tool to maybe help them with their nervous system, if whatever else is out there?
I feel like if you think about this, like sometimes you unplug your computer and then you plug it back in and it works better, or it clears out any blockages or any stuck screens or anything you had. Almost the same concept, where you almost have to remove all of the stimulation that you're dealing with and all the balls that you've got juggling in the air to make some sense out of it and to see clearly through all the chaos. So getting into a float tank to help your mind stop thinking about all that chaos gives you a little bit of a clearer picture about where you need to go with whatever issue you're dealing with.
It was interesting as well. They've been doing floating since the 1950s. And John Lilly was a guy that is a big part of inventing floating. And he was quite an experimentalist. He was like, what can I do? He actually floated himself, and he realized in the 1950s, what happens if the brain doesn't have any stimulation at all? Does it just die? What happens to the brain? He's just such on the leading edge in that time frame. But what they started to realize was when the brain doesn't have to work to keep yourself upright, to do the basic things that it has to do to like just function, you can really let go. Because you're in a float tank, don't have to worry about standing up, gravity. There's no sound. There's no light. We have music. We have lights if you want them. But if you really want to get into that experience, you can get to this place where you can let go of all those senses, and the brain can start using its energy to kind of absorb everything and just make new pathways. And so I come out where I think of something I'm working on. It's like, yeah, that's the way to do it. And every time I go in with this jumble thoughts, and I know it's going to come out where I've got some kind of better solution to something at the end of it, because it's working on it. It's the unconscious mind is so powerful, and it's able to take on all those conscious thoughts we've had, and just now it's got that time to just assemble them. I call it's like my assembly line. I can take all that stuff that's jumbled and just reorganize it in a very coherent way.
All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow because Ed's probably thinking
There you go.
exactly what I am after today. And he's like, Chuck needs this like right now.
Yeah, actually, me too. It helps to fill in the gaps of what most people are missing. Now, in the wellness industry, we talk about infrared saunas and cold plunging and things like that. Like, it seems to be a lot of extreme practices that shock your system, extreme heat, extreme cold, and this type of thing. And it's the secret or the key to unlocking longevity and things like that. But what we're talking about today is the opposite of that, taking away all of that stimulation, all of that shocking, and bringing your nervous system back to the state that, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm guessing when we're in the womb and we're floating in our mother's tummy, that's probably the closest thing I can imagine to this experience. Is that correct?
A lot of people have mentioned that's exactly how they feel, or that's how they imagine it would have felt being in the womb. Because you aren't restricted by anything. When you're in a float tank, you're just on top of the water. The water's holding you up. So there's no effort to try and hold your head up unless you consciously try to hold your head up.
Actually, I know there's some flotation centers here where I am, but I just wanted to ask a further question, because we talk about the nervous system, we talk about the experience, but based on your experience, have you seen tangible benefits that people have gone into flotation programs and what's happened when they've come out or they've continued to do this type of practice?
Absolutely. In fact, there are several float center owners that we know personally who started a center for that very reason, that they needed a reason to float, and they went and they loved it, kind of like us. I mean, we found it. We weren't seeking it, but we found it, and we realized this is something we need to bring to our community. But yeah, people have various reasons for wanting or needing a float tank, and they find them, and then they continue to float.
You can talk about Ryan. Ryan's a great example of that story, right? You want to tell Ryan's story?
Yeah, he's an amazing example of this. So this was a young gentleman. So we knew his mother, and she was a client of Alan's for his energy work. And he was visiting, and he had been in a very traumatic motorcycle accident where there was a fatality involved, and he was being charged with this fatality. So the legal process aside, his physical injuries were pretty significant, and he was having a lot of pain. Again, went through the whole gamut of narcotics and other kind of treatments, modalities. Things were working, but nothing was sticking. So his mother just said, come try it. If you don't like it, don't worry about it, but at least try it. He was open to that, and he came in, and he started very slowly where he could only last a short period, but he kept coming back. And that was the most important thing. He kept coming back, and he really learned that he loved it. And not only did he just love the feeling of weightlessness, his physical therapist started saying, "What are you doing? Are you working extra physical therapy sessions at home? What are you doing? Because your improvement is amazing." So he started to take on a lot more increased range of motion, less pain. And in fact, I remember when I first met him and we had his conversation about whether this would help him or not. He was very, very interested in starting to take a benzodiazepine, essentially, to help him with the pain and the anxiety and everything that was plaguing him. And as a nurse, I was like, hey, try floating for a while. Before you go on meds, just try to float and see if that does anything for you. And as far as I know, he never took that next step to go on medication. Not that it was a cure all, obviously, he still has issues, but he noticed a significant improvement in his quality of life, his level of pain, and just his general ability to function in society, to hold down a job and everything else that comes along with that. So I think he was a big success story.
Wow, that's awesome. And you mentioned that Alan does energy healing work, and I believe you also, Jeannie, with your psychology background. What part does that play in visitors to your center? So obviously, you guys are not just business owners; you live and breathe and practice well-being and wellness lifestyle because of your backgrounds. So how does your background experience enhance the experience for visitors to your center?
I think my experience, or the fact that I'm a registered nurse, I like to believe that people feel that we offer credible services and credible modalities that can help relieve whatever issues might be going on in their life.
Yeah, and I was able to experience energy healing, and I was able to be trained as a practitioner in that over the last 5 years. And it's a combination of like the Chinese medicine healing, Indian healing, and Korean healing, and it's basically chakras, meridians, and nervous system training, basically, and working with light and those kinds of things. But when I help people to go into the tank, tell them to think about the breath. The breath is so powerful, and to think about that's going to calm them down if they do feel a bit anxious because it is so new and different. To start to use the breath to take some deep breath and even do some breath work before they get into the tank so they can actually kind of experience a little bit of that parasympathetic feeling before they even get in there so they're not like getting that freaked out feeling before they get in there. Because I think some people are like, oh, what's it going to be like? And those kinds of things. But if they can just calm themselves down before they get to that point, through a little bit of energy work and those kinds of things, and just visualization of what they want to get from the float is a good way. Another thing they can think about: what do they want to experience in that float that they're going to have, and then really enjoy the breath. I tell people to use the breath as the way, because there's one of the speakers at one of our float conferences, James Nestor, I think his name is, and they did a book called Breathe. He was one of the speakers one time, and he's tied the idea of floating to the ability to get these really deep breaths because the diaphragm has no weight on it. I notice this when I float. Typically, when I'm in a normal time, I can do like a maybe 5-10 second breath. With floating, I can take a 15, 20 seconds. It's like, when is this going to end? Just my lungs keep expanding like a balloon. And it's like, this is amazing. And I do it like 10 times. I tell people, just use your breath to calm the nervous system down. I think using that energy to use the fact that the float tank is this amazing place to take the stress and the weight off the lungs, gives it a chance to breathe, and then the breath, it does all the magic it has, and it gets people to calm the energy down. So it's using the techniques that we both have to kind of help someone to have the best experience that they can have.
If I could add
Wow.
something to that, I often do kind of silently screen people when they come in to kind of gauge their nervousness level. Oftentimes, very first time floaters, I will talk to them about the breath and I will talk to them about how they can calm themselves down when they get into the tank, when they feel like they're like, oh, I just can't do this anymore. If they get that anxious feeling, just because they have to calm down their nervous system through a few breaths in order to allow their nervous system to really take in the full benefit of being in the float tank for the full time. For an hour is really the ideal sweet spot. Some people only want to do 30 minutes because, like, I don't know, this is new. But I try to explain to them, like, an hour is really important because it takes a while for your body to figure out what to do, and then you have to calm your anxiety level down a little bit with breathing, and then your nervous system really needs to stay in that state for like 30 to 40 minutes to get the full benefit.
Then eventually you can do a 4-hour float.
Oh my gosh, yes.
What?
Some people have.
I've done a 4-hour float before, and it's best of time from 4 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning because you're just in this place of suggestive. This one guy was saying he has lucid dreams at that point, and I had it, and I tried it, and I was like, this is quite different because I really I don't know if you ever watched Doctor Who. I was in a Doctor Who episode directing the whole episode. It was like, this is the wildest dream I've ever had.
There's your challenge,
Wow.
Chuck.
4 hours. My goodness. The clarity I could get from that. It's interesting. I almost wish I talked to both of you in much more detail and watched this episode before going in because I'll have to be honest. I went into it thinking, all right, I'll try this thing. I don't really know. But the story of the nervous system, and Jeannie, forgive me, you probably even told me that, but I just wasn't listening. But now I'm so much like I would have a completely different approach going into it now after talking to and having this meeting. So I'm so glad we're doing this because it is about the story we tell ourselves all the time, but especially before we go in to do something. What are we trying to get out of it? I didn't even think about how it's going to help the nervous system. I just thought, all right, I'm going to be able to relax in this thing. Relaxing's good for you. I'll do it. So thank you for doing this. Not that it's over, but I just appreciate this moment right now that now for myself and hopefully the listeners, they get a totally different approach now when they go in if they've watched this first.
Yep, hopefully.
And maybe I'll work my way to that 4 hours. I mean, maybe get to that 90 minutes first and have the ideas click. Because, again, like to me, that's exactly what I'm looking for right now. So hopefully if there's someone out there that's thinking, yeah, I'm always on, which is my next question, right? Like for that listener who's always on, I'm always on. The brain doesn't stop and you have a hard time turning it off at night. If that's you, Jeannie, Allan, outside of just going to your float center in Ocean City, Maryland, or the float center near you, what are some techniques that we could do at home that we could figure out how to control that, how to signal to our nervous system that everything's okay? You'll figure it out, because I know if we're always on, the ideas aren't going to flow. We're not in a state where we can figure things out, and then that leads to decision paralysis, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I can
think
jump in. I can do a technique that I use. So basically, I like to be able to really understand what is my place I'm at now. Be okay, actually tune in, because a lot of times when people are really on, they're in their mind a lot. They're just going, their mind is going, they're on a productive role. What's next? What do I do next? Actually, I have a corporate job too, and on the side. So not my side. That's my main job that I do. Is my day job is to work in coaching teams and agile project management kind of stuff. So I actually live this life because I travel a lot. I'm on the road, in a hotel. I'm up late, and then my mind is like racing. And so I use this technique myself all the time. So I say, where is the nervous system again? It's like, where is my nervous system? What emotion has been driving through the day? Have I been in anxiety? Have I been unworthy? Have I felt guilt? Have I felt some joy sometimes? Just run through my day and look at the things that have happened. And it's interesting when you observe yourself, it takes you out of the actual being in the self. So that's an interesting place to be. So you kind of can be at the place where I'm using a different part of my brain to observe what's actually happening. So I can say, okay, what is going on? And it's okay to have any emotion because we all are emotional beings. Once you can recognize it's okay to be there, you can then make the translation that says, okay, if I stay in those anxious states, it's probably going to burn me out. I may achieve in the short term, but my long term is not going to be good. So I need to think about what driving state I want to be in. So then, the next thing then is to calm the nervous system. And that's where floating comes in, because and when I'm traveling, I'm away from my float tank and everything else. So I just do a lot of deep breathing and do 20 minutes of just deep breathing, just like take a deep inhale through the nose and pause, exhale through the nose and pause. And that centers myself. And some people say that they want to think their way out of the stress. And it makes it worse because you can't think your way out of stress. You have to make the nervous system just calm down and be able to center. And so once you can center, before you center, your thoughts and nervous system and emotions are a mangled mess. There are all these different things are joining, connecting. And once you center, it's like, they kind of go in harmony again. And so it just is able to so it's a technique I use, and then I project my future. The next part of that is, what is my future going to be like? Is where is my future? I want to be more in joy and inspiration than anxiety and fear. And so I'm training my neurons in my brain to go, okay, I'm in inspiration and joy. And it's basically training every day, and it's my unconscious mind to be in that place. So that's what I use.
To your point, Chuck, I think recognition that you're in that state is groundbreaking. First of all, if somebody can recognize that they're just going in a million different directions. I mean, people who have high pressure jobs or people who always feel like they have to be busy, time is money, time is money. But I think priority is giving yourself permission to relax. I mean, that's really it. You just have to give yourself permission to take a pause for a minute, to center and to regroup.
That is hard for a lot of people, but it's so true. Speaking from experience, if you don't do that, and this is a good reminder for me to remember these same things, especially after today. But I can think back not too long ago that led to disease for me, not slowing down, not stopping, constantly being in a state of flight and fight. So the nervous system, talk to me. I'm really fascinated by this nervous system, by the nervous system. Like, it's a new thing, but how does it learn how to allow you the calmness and how to allow that to be sustainable? Does it, I guess what I'm trying to say is it like a muscle? Do you get better at it over time?
Yeah.
I think
It's not a muscle, but it's like it works in that way where you have to train it. You have to continue to tell yourself to breathe or to experience joy or to, whatever you tell your mind, it's going to do it. So, yeah, you have to just repeatedly feed it good thoughts.
I think what Jeannie says, right? It's training the nervous system so that you are kind of training it to take on those new patterns, because we've all got those patterns we've got from whatever our childhood was, from our teenage years, all the different things. Everybody's got some level of something traumatic that's happened. If you've got to live past your teenage years, you've had something that's been a trauma in your system, so it's in there. So it's okay to actually experience anything. It's a matter of, am I driving from that place? And so I think it's, if you can get to that place where you can train, it's training it to calm. And the calmness is what gets the nervous system to just say it's okay. So it's okay to do anything, and any emotion or any thought isn't who I am. You're so many different things. And so by calming down, you can kind of go to I call the highest self, the person I want to be, the person I choose to be, because I don't have all the baggage from the past. I'm future focused. I'm focused on my future and the place I want to be at.
And it's different when you're saying that you're consciously talking to your subconscious. It's different than just saying it, right?
Yeah.
It's
And
intentional.
that's the thing. I think the subconscious mind is such an interesting thing. It's so powerful. It's so much more powerful than the conscious mind, because it seemed to me that's why I look at it as it just assembles everything. And it's like the processing engine of a computer. It's the thing that does all the work. And we're feeding it with the conscious mind. And the more we can feed it the things we want to happen, it's going to work on our behalf, because we're able to basically take on those things that repeat to each as ourselves. And that's how we learn in the first place the things that we've taken on from the childhood and all the other things, because we heard those things so many times but we didn't have a choice in those days. Now we have a choice to take them on in our own way.
And it's just like learning a new skill. Like anything, you have to do it repeatedly to be better at it. You know, you're not reaching perfection, you're just getting better at what you're doing. So the more you train your nervous system to be in the state that you want it to be in, the easier it will be for you to get into that state when you get out of balance.
It's just so hard to forget that it's there, right?
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're years down the path of burnout and you wonder why. So
Yep. And like you
speaking
said, you
to
start
that,
to feel disease, you start to feel bad.
hmm yeah, and I guess the key for all of us is to figure out that, and identify that burnout before it becomes that desperate, where your body starts to respond. What do you think, in both of your opinions? I'd love to get your thoughts, both of you. What's the one well-intentioned thing that people do that actually keeps them stuck?
Go ahead, Ellen.
I think it's something that we were talking about earlier, was the fact that they almost want it too much and they try too hard. It's interesting. It's a dichotomy, because if you try too hard and you force it, then you're in that fight or flight again. So it's like it's an oxymoron. You're kind of like, you're working really hard. Really want this to happen, and it doesn't happen unless you just submit to it, to calm and just let the almost unconscious mind take over and say, okay, just be a bit more less controlling, I guess. And some people want to control it. So I'm going to control it. It's going to happen exactly now, or a certain way. And so it's going to happen in its own time, and it's going to happen in a certain way that you may not even know, but it's going to be even better than if you can just let go.
Yeah, I think expectations, to like expecting if I do everything exactly the way they tell me to do it, it's going to happen exactly right for me. And then when it doesn't, you get frustrated, and then you just get in that cycle. It's got to naturally happen the way your body and your mind is going to tell it to happen.
Ed,
Chuck and
this
I
is
had
not
this conversation last night. Dude, I'm looking at you. We're going through a transformation journey at the moment, and sometimes it's frustrating because you want things to happen really, really fast. You want to push them, but our coach actually said, trust them, just keep at it. And that's one of the hardest things, exactly like especially Alan just said right there, that sometimes by overthinking it and trying to push it too much, it has the opposite effect. And then you're stuck back where you were before. So I really appreciate that. That's a golden nugget right there.
I mean, the universe is powerful. The fact that you two are here today, and we almost missed this because the universe didn't let us see an email or whatever, and then we got it scheduled. And then the fact that it's today of all days in this message, it's wild. And this keeps happening every single week, Ed. It's so wild. Wow. Yeah.
It's
I
nice.
literally think this is like the aha moment, Ed, for me, that listeners, viewers, they need to be involved in these. We need to somehow figure out how they can also ask questions, because they deserve to have the same type of experience that we're having, right? We have to figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there are
absolutely.
literally hundreds of float centers across the country, and they're even across the world too. Most of them obviously are in the United States, but there are others in other countries. So try it out. Try it out.
So Chuck came to you as a busy executive. Before, you spoke about a gentleman that is recovering, like going through rehabilitation. What other type of clients tend to gravitate towards this type of practice? Like, who do you see? Men, women, age groups, a specific type of demographic?
We see it all, actually. White collar, typically. It needs to be affordable for people. So we have to, be cognizant of that. A lot of people come in because they're curious, or because they were given a gift certificate or something of that nature. But the people that stay and become our members are very wellness minded and know the benefits of what it does for them. We get a lot of athletes come in, they know the benefits of helping their bodies heal and recover.
And shall I make a bold suggestion?
By all means.
I needed to wait for permission for that. this is just my insurance guy talking, but if you have an HSA or an FSA, if you're worried because it's not covered by insurance, like let's not look at it through that lens. Insurance really isn't covering anything anyway because you're picking up the first $5,000, $6,000 regardless. So just use your HSA and pay for this with tax-free dollars because you got the money sitting there anyway. I hope more and more of us cannot wait like I did to check out these wellness centers because I didn't do it and even think to do it until I got a disease. That's a shame because I could have maybe prevented it, but I also just it opened up a whole new world to me. So I hope that's the message that people get out of this today is there's if you don't have the money for it, but you have money in your HSA, use that. Speaking of that, if someone only remembers one thing from this conversation, what do you want it to be?
I want people to focus on their own self-care. I want people to give themselves permission to pause.
That what you just said. I want people to be able to find the creativity in in themselves by being able to calm down their nervous system and find the best of themselves.
And for both of you, how would you reframe calm? Not as something to achieve, but something to allow?
Good way to put it. Yeah, something to embrace,
Something to
something to
welcome.
prioritize. Yeah, to
Something
welcome
to
it.
welcome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because my always on the go mind would probably frame this last sentence differently. So it would probably say true calm only happens if you try harder to get true calm. But true calm, I would imagine after today's episode that including myself, that we'll probably word it as true calm doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from, and please fill in the sentence.
True calm comes from taking a moment to evaluate the moment that you're in. And if you're feeling anxious, you just need to pause and breathe through it.
I think true calm comes from trusting your higher self and knowing it's going to provide whatever you need.
Interesting. So true calm doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from being present.
Yeah.
Yes,
Comes from
very
feeling
much.
safe, making your nervous system feel safe.
I like that. I think I can certainly put that up on my wall as a reminder. When you have 15 meetings in a row and you want to remind yourself, okay, all right, it's not about trying harder, Chuck. All right. Well, thank you so
That's right.
much.
Earlier on, Jeannie, you mentioned that this is not the be all and end all. So what do you suggest is a great way to integrate this? Like what other practices work really, really well with floatation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, we are fortunate at our float center to be able to offer a multitude of modalities. So, as you referred to earlier, we have the infrared sauna, we have a cold plunge, we have halotherapy, which is the salt room, salt cave respiratory therapy. We have massage, we have red light therapy. So, I will tell you a couple popular combinations. Massage and float together is wonderful. Sauna and float together is wonderful. But all of our modalities, they're all intended to relax your nervous system, obviously, in many, many different ways. The float does it in one way, the red light therapy or the sauna do it in a different way. So, any of them paired together are just an amazing experience. And that's actually a common question that we get. It's like, can I just come and stay all day and do everything? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Or, is doing everything too much? And I was like, no, not at all. Depends on your
Your
budget
body
and,
needs
and
it.
your time.
If you're asking that
Yeah.
question, your body needs it.
Right. Right.
That's right.
Is this a
Thank you.
growing marketplace? I mean, it's not necessarily been around forever. So if someone's interested in getting into the wellness space, how would they go about doing it? And maybe opening up a center like yours?
Well, the beauty is we have a trade organization called the Float Tank Association. And that's a great place to field some questions for people that sit on the board of directors, myself included, are all float center owners. So any of us would be happy to answer any questions. And we have a conference coming up. We have an annual conference too. So that's a great introduction to the float industry.
In Norfolk, Virginia, right?
Yeah, Norfolk, Virginia, right in your backyard.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So if you're interested, check the association out. We'll drop that in the comments below. And of course, do 3 things for us. If you found value in this episode, go down below, subscribe, hit the like button. And then if this resonated with you and it maybe brought up 15 of your friends in your head that you thought should probably hear this because they're always on, like this guy, maybe you should share it with them because you love them. So yes, please share this episode. All those things help us get this information out to more people. We really appreciate you both being here. This has been an awesome episode. So timely. Hopefully it's timely for everybody else who watches this. And of course, the last thing I'd love to hear too is comment below if this was timely. Comment below if you loved this information.
And just looking at this lovely couple, I can imagine you guys have the most wonderful, calm, loving relationship and marriage, right? So maybe flotation is a great solution for
30
marriage and
years.
happiness as well. Wow.
30 years.
Years, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
point,
you.
Ed.
Thank you for that.